We don't actually, when it comes down to it, know and how to articulate to other people what it is we're okay with, what it is that we want, what it is that we desire, and what it is that we want to work towards, because we spent so much of our freaking lives being so concerned about other people than we have about ourselves.
Women start like really diving into their masculine. I know I did that. It was all physicality. It was, I'm gonna puff up and I'm gonna physically look dominant so nobody comes near me because emotionally and psychologically, I don't feel like I can defend myself. And you're smirking because you met me in that. Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
And it's Emilia.
Welcome to another episode of Evolved Ventures, where we are helping growth minded humans evolve by breaking one limiting belief at a time. We opened with episode number 305, Motivation Monday, How to Respect Yourself. For today, number 306, How to Not Get Walked Over. I want to start this episode with a public service announcement. My name is Bianca Thomas, and I am a recovering people pleaser. I am a recovering anyone do anything they want to me, and I'll just sit here and happily accept it because any attention is better than nothing.
Mm.
Um, I am a recovering nobody cares about me mindset, and so I just let anyone do whatever. It was not fun. It was not a good time. And it's just freaking brutal. I don't even know how else to say it. It's freaking brutal when you sincerely don't believe that you're worth anything. And so you let anyone do whatever they want, or you don't feel powerful and empowered enough to be able to step up for
Mm.
yourself. So, to anyone listening who's like, "Yup, I'm there," or "Yup, I've been there," this episode is going to be exactly what you need to help you to start in your recovery the way that I did and get to a point in your life where you feel so empowered by who you are that you would never again let somebody do the things that you allowed in the past.
Mm. I'm like trying to think about the story that I can share here that's like, you know, politically correct. No. That I could share here where it really helps to hype our community up, and also for like when I need it, I can come back to this episode and like just give myself this reminder, because honestly, it is so difficult nowadays not to get walked all over, especially when you are a recovering people pleaser, or when you have had conditional experiences around like at a very young age, learning to kind of roll over and developing learned helplessness. So, how to not get walked all over is a very near and dear episode to my heart, because not only have I been there too, where I've definitely gotten walked on, maybe not all over. I would say like there's a couple of relationships where that was the case, but I've transformed. And with that transformation, I have seen how much so many of us get walked on. And it honestly, if I'm being straightforward, it's kind of disgusting how much there's a need for so many people to unintentionally and unconsciously walk on others. Like, we're so ignorant to other people's boundaries and other people's areas of struggle, or where they're developing self-respecting behaviors. Like we mentioned in our last episode, where how do you respect yourself? You start on the inner world and you start to develop those things. But when you're doing that, how aware are people that, oh, she just set a boundary? Like, I need to like not walk on that boundary, and hold ourselves accountable to encourage other people, to like be in their power, command respect,
Mm.
and really just live in that. So it's this is gonna be an interesting one.
I think you got to start by finally getting pissed off enough to be like, F this. Honestly, that's how it started for me. Like, when my last relationship ended, I really wish this wasn't the case, but that was the tipping point for me.
Yeah,
And I wanna be clear, she didn't walk over me like that. I hold a lot of the responsibility for that relationship on me because I chose to ignore
yeah.
things that I was seeing. Again, people pleaser. Hi. We don't do smart things. But in previous relationships, I was completely stomped on. I wasn't walked over, I was stomped on. They were, like, curb stomping me, and it took me
Jeez.
going through, to say the least, it took me going through that last relationship and that ending for me to finally be like, "Honestly, F this. This is ridiculous." I am you know me, I'm not someone who just, like, will stay in bed all day. I've never been that person, like, even
Yeah,
before I met you guys, but even now, especially, I'm not that person, right? Like, my body wakes me up at the ass crack of dawn, and
mhm.
I can't fall back asleep when I do, so I'm up and I'm trying to get as much done as I can and work on my mental health and make time for myself and whatever. When that last relationship ended, there was a weekend I was in bed for 2 days. Do you remember me telling you that?
I do, I remember being very set back because I was like, "Oh, shoot." That was one of the first times where I was, like, really concerned for your mental health. Like, I remember I shared with you.
Oh my god. I
Yeah.
like, I've even when my abusive 4-year relationship ended, it didn't hit me that bad. I was like, "Alright, bye." But
Yeah.
that oh my god, it crushed me. And going through that and literally feeling, like, catatonic, like I couldn't move, I couldn't get out of bed, I was just crying for 2 days straight. It
Yeah.
was that tipping point for me of, like, I am never letting myself get back to this place again. I
Love
do
that.
not deserve this. I
Mhm.
don't deserve to let people dictate my emotions to that much of a degree to where I'm in bed for 2 days because a relationship that was already misaligned ended.
Right.
And so, yeah, I really think it does start with that. Like, you have to get to a point where you're so pissed off where it's like, I am not letting this happen again.
Yeah.
And then you go from there.
Mm.
Like, yeah. What have you seen with clients? Have they
I
hit
was
that
gonna say,
like
I'll echo that from the back, and I actually published an article on Evolve's website. I'll make sure that to link it, and I've actually sent it to, like, so many people already, and it's gotten a lot of traction and readability in it because of the fact that when we talk about being walked on or walked all over and how not to, the topic of conversation that has to be in this dialogue is assertiveness. And I can't tell you how many times in my coaching I literally apply fundamentals and principles of assertiveness training with every single client. And while I might not be like, "Oh, this is a time to, pull in XYZ of assertiveness training," we just go through it. And before you know it, they start to slowly increase over time their own assertiveness, where they can look back at a past version of themselves and be like, "Holy shit, like I can't believe I tolerated that back then." It's like, yeah, exactly. Because your standard for yourself and what you stand for is no longer taking the back seat. So when it comes to what I've seen with clients, oftentimes we just have these conditional patterns of not knowing what we stand for. And I had reposted something on my story. This will be like a month and a half later by the time this episode comes out. But it was about how easy it is to keep someone small and insecure. The encouragement towards that is a lot better for society because then we can walk on people when they're small, when they're insecure, and when they feel insignificant. And when we as people don't know what we stand for, so this, for example, is your core values, your core beliefs. What are your non-negotiables of treatments, of behaviors, of what you're okay with, where are your boundaries? When we don't know what those are and what we stand for, how the hell are we going to start to assert that kind of assertive more dominant, more holding your power energy, where people kind of get this the sitch of like, I'm not gonna walk on her. I'm not gonna walk on him. She or he knows what they stand for. They know what they're not willing to tolerate, and they're gonna do something about it when or if you cross that line. And you're not gonna like that. So
Yeah.
I think that the biggest through line here that I've seen that's underneath all of this stuff is we don't actually know what our needs are. We don't actually know what we want. We don't actually, when it comes down to it, know and how to articulate to other people what it is we're okay with, what it is that we want, what it is that we desire, and what it is that we want to work towards, because we spent so much of our freaking lives being so concerned about other people than we have about ourselves. And so the echoing the statement of getting pissed off comes from the back. And I want to bring that back to the front, because we get so pissed off only after we realize we've been self sabotaging, only after we realize we've taken so much crap from people that we just start to like spill the volcano of like non-respecting self and what it is that we actually care about, and breaking promises to ourselves. That starts to just pile up and ooze over because we've been walking on ourselves, and it starts there always. That's what I see with clients.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to jump on here. My name is Julie, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to Evolve Ventures and to my coaching with Bianca. I'm like many of you. It's like I've read all the books, positivity, the glass is half full, it's not half empty. Tried to get myself away from negative people, tried to think positive thoughts, suffered from depression, on medications, tried everything, counseling. Tried so many different things, and it helped, but I never felt like I got to the root of the problem. And I started listening to Evolve Ventures, amazing. And then I did a free coaching with Bianca and thought, what could it hurt? It's free, right? Oh my gosh, that day changed my life. I blurted out to Bianca things that I had never even really thought about myself. And I ended up setting up coaching with her. And I know so many of us say, oh, we can't afford coaching. But let me tell you, that coffee that you drink, that cupcake that you have, those cookies that you buy, that restaurant you go to, all those little things to make you feel better, you can take all of that and put it aside and invest in yourself. Use that money to invest in you, because you don't need those cookies to feel happy anymore. You don't need those restaurants to feel happy anymore. When you know how to be happy yourself, how to make yourself happy. And it's not all great, every day is fine, but I can now acknowledge things. I can acknowledge why I feel the way I do, and I can work through it without having to feel like there is no help. People are great. I definitely recommend Evolve Ventures and Bianca.
And then you know what happens after that too is people swing the pendulum on the complete opposite side, and then they become hardened and ice cold.
Been there. Mm-hmm.
It's like you feel helpless and inferior, and then you
Mm-hmm.
swing to the complete opposite end of the spectrum where it's like, nobody's going to touch me. I'm not letting anybody in. F everybody. The walls instantly go up, and it becomes
Yeah.
this very like aggressive, hyper dominant exterior
Yeah.
instead of finding that middle ground where you feel like you have the self love and the self worth and the confidence, which is a skill enough
Mm-hmm.
to allow in what's adaptive and serving you, and to not allow what's not adaptive and not serving you, which is that
Absolutely.
beautiful middle. But unfortunately, most people are on one end of the spectrum or the other. There's very
Yeah.
few people that I've met or that I've seen that are in that healthy middle ground. It's like people are either getting completely stomped on and destroyed, or they're completely hardened, and this is where like the women start like really diving into their masculine. I know I
Yeah.
did that. It was all physicality. It was,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna puff up and I'm gonna physically look dominant so nobody comes near me, because emotionally and psychologically, I don't feel like I can defend myself. And you're smirking because you met me in that.
I did. It's so funny. So like what happens, like how do we actually like not get walked all over? One of the most practical tactics that I give to clients, and that literally we do repetitions within sessions, is really formatted and springing from something that I believe so deeply in that we could all benefit from, is cultivating the language of nonviolent communication. And we might be thinking, okay, Amelia, how the frick does that connect to not getting walked all over? But here's the truth, Bianca, what you just said is we start really like mousy, not assertive, not even knowing what our needs are, not feeling like, I have some clients who like don't even know after a year of asking themselves what do they want, don't even have an answer to that because they've just been so hyper conditioned to focus on everyone else's needs above their own. So they don't even feel like they can tap into the wellspring of what they do want. So they're either on that side or they're on the other end of the spectrum to where they're so hyper focused on their own needs that they're just expressing it so much that no one can really get close and they can't really build a connection. So what you do, you're swinging from one end of the pendulum, like you said, to the other. And the most practical approach to actually bridging the gap when it comes to relationships is nonviolent communication. Because when you're on one end of the spectrum, you're either communicating, well, not you're either. You're communicating from some vibration or some degree of violence. Either the I'm so suppressed, I'm pissed off that people are walking all over me and I don't feel like I can stand up for myself. So maybe that's the guilt, the shame, the blame vibration that comes in, or you're on the other end of the hyper individualism. I'm sticking up so much for myself that I'm isolating myself and I don't feel as though I can bridge that connection with the people that I do want to connect into me, or that are trying to maybe walk all over me and I want to have a relationship with them, but yet I don't necessarily know how to emotionally engage or connect. And so the fundamental practical asset that I give clients to leverage is really bringing in the three principles of nonviolent communication, which literally look like this. I'm going to say a sentence and I want everyone to fill in the blank, including you, B, when I say this. I feel blank when blank because blank. So in that situation, I feel hurt when you call me names, so pointing at a specific behavior after the when, because, and in that blank, my need for connection is so high. So when someone calls you a name, let's say it's a colleague or a friend or, I don't know, a family member, oftentimes we do not express how we actually feel. And now there's a whole dialogue that can be involved here because we don't actually know how we feel. So that's a skill in and of itself. When certain things happen, there's always behaviors that trigger us. And then after that, we don't understand why we're having this emotional experience, not only because we haven't identified the behaviors that contribute to that, but also because we don't recognize what needs are not being met. And so, how the heck are we not going to be walked all over when we don't know, like I said, what we stand for? We don't know what the needs are that are underlying what we stand for. How the heck are we going to feel as though we're capable of not being walked all over because we don't have the skill sets, we don't have the tools? So, B, when I first met you, you didn't have the tools of nonviolent communication, but you've acquired those over time through our relationship and through the work that you've been doing. And it's helping to essentially just speak up for what your needs are, how you're feeling, and what behaviors cross those boundaries. That's the simple fundamental principle. And I'm going to link a digital asset to this episode too that has been super helpful for me personally when it comes to the situations where I'm starting to feel like I'm getting walked all over. It helps that exploration process of the inner journey that we all need to go through of like, why am I feeling some type of way about this? Oh, it's because this need is not being met. And this behavior cropped up on that and started to feel like I'm being stomped on. So I need to make sure that I approach this with that person or address it with that person. And we don't do that because we fear conflict. And when you do that, when you can cultivate a skill like that, you're not going to get walked over. Instead, you're going to start to inch towards that feeling heard, feeling seen, and feeling valued in what your needs are, not by the other person, but by you. And it starts by you always. Ends with you, starts with you.
One last thing before we wrap up. Nobody is worth you disrespecting yourself. I don't care how amazing they are. I don't care what their credentials are. I don't care how attractive they are. I don't care if it's your mother, your brother, your cousin, your best friend from when you were 2. Nobody is worth you betraying yourself and allowing you to be stomped on and walked all over to maintain the relationship.
Facts.
none of this stuff is going to work if you don't have that fundamental belief.
Yeah.
Nobody's worth it. You are seriously better off alone than you are allowing harmful relationships into your life. And I wish someone said that to me 10 years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it now. I'm saying it to me now. I'm saying it to everyone listening. So, yeah, that's my last point. Um,
My
what is your
last final episode
opinion?
takeaway is to really compliment what you just said. Anyone who actually cares about you will not allow or not tolerate or just simply not be okay with you walking all over yourself and with you allowing others to walk on you. Like, for example, B, if I ever see you walking on yourself, there's always a part of me that gets activated that has, because I care so deeply about you, wants to encourage you speaking up for yourself, asserting your boundaries where you might have overlapped them. Like that's a constant because I care. And so, again, I wish someone had told me that when I was younger because we get it so twisted because we see people who care about us, but yet they are in the moment with us when we are getting walked all over, when we're walking on ourselves and no one speaks up. So we learn this behavior to do it to ourselves because if we don't do it to ourselves, someone else is going to walk on us. And that just creates a really negative cycle. So, my final episode suggestion for this one is 268. This fear is holding you back.
Mine is 251, Motivation Monday, how to set boundaries. All right, everybody. If you have resonated with this episode, you're like, yep, this is me. I keep getting walked over. I need to learn how to stop doing this. Evolve is the place for you. We have the You Do You coaching or therapy program. We have one on one coaching. It's weekly or bi weekly or monthly, depending on what your needs are. And there's just a ton of other resources that are there for you to utilize if this is something you really want to work on. So click the links in the show notes, DM your girls, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.